I'm Tina Helmut, and in this video I'm going to share an ancient Celtic secret with you. A secret that dispels a stubborn myth that prevents many people from living a full life, an exciting life, from living a life that they deserve. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me share a bit of my own story with you. See, I used to think that life is a continuous battle. I thought that you have to fight for survival every single moment. You have to fight for everything you've got, for everything that you achieve and that you want to achieve. And if you let up, you die. Well, perhaps not literally, all right? But it felt like that to me a lot of the time. And the good thing was that I was willing to work hard and very diligently, and that I really got very far professionally and otherwise. But it also meant that many people thought me too intense, and I had a lot of problems with the people I worked with and the people I loved. And maybe not surprisingly, I ended up burnt out, unhappy and unfulfilled. Of course, I'm not alone feeling like that. Many people are like me. They reach midlife, have achieved lots of impressive things, professionally and personally. And like me, they're continuously exhausted. They're barely hanging on. Like me, they really are not getting out of life what they want and what they deserve, what they should get. What happened then to me is that out of the blue, I became dangerously ill. And to be honest, I'm incredibly lucky to be alive today. Although I did not realize it at the time though, it was the turning point of my life, getting this ill. And I remember thinking as they rolled me into the OR, please, this cannot be over yet. I've been so unhappy most of my life. I've hardly lived at all. My life was not at all as I wanted it to turn out. Luckily, I was given another chance. And I survived, and already from that hospital bed, I began thinking about my life and about myself. I vowed that I would never, ever want to have these feelings of regret and sadness again. These feelings of having a wasted life, as it felt to me on that dark and rainy day in late March that I will never forget. Now, like so many of us, I have lived my life under a completely false premise, because I thought that there was a distinction between my private and my professional life, and that I would make a lot of sacrifices in my personal life to achieve my professional goals, and that it didn't matter because I had all the time in the world, and once I had achieved my professional goals, my private life would become better as well, and I would then tend to it. Now let me tell you, that really was a horribly wrong assumption. And I'll tell you why. First of all, nobody knows how long we have been given, so don't put off your personal life. And secondly, most of us spend the biggest and best part of every day at work, earning a living, right? And by the time we come home at night, we are tired. We're exhausted, and even weekends, they never seem to have enough hours, right? And you have to sleep, you have to shop, you have to socialize, and they're always too short, right? Which means that if we assume that life is what happens outside of work, only a pitifully small amount of hours is left to us, during which we feel alert and energetic and at our best for private life. Nevertheless, this is the way many of us spend our lives until we are too old, or too tired or too sick to work. And then we find that somehow much of our life has passed us by and we just are too old and too tired or too sick to get much enjoyment out of life. Now, if you don't believe me, look into the faces of many old age pensioners that you see. Now, what gave me the courage to try and find another way? Because I did, and I found another way. Because, see, I met people who do manage their lives differently. You can see it in their faces. They're not harried, pale and exhausted looking, but they're cheerful and smiling. And the best thing is that the way people feel about life has nothing at all to do with money or age or social status. But what is the secret? What is their secret? I spent a long time looking for it until I found it. And I found it in an unusual place, and in a place that no one had ever thought to look. Do you know where? In the philosophy of the ancient Celts. See, I am an academically trained Celtic scholar, and I've been studying the Celts for over 20 years, and the Celts have been my passion for even longer. But I tell you, in my wildest dreams, I would never have expected them to provide me with life coaching, and yet they did. And so now let me share some of what I found with you. See, Celtic society was essentially a warrior society. These guys were very used to fighting, and literally for survival. Fighting was part of their lives, just as it had been for mine. Now don't get me wrong, I do not condone violence in any way, right? On the contrary. But what I'm saying is that even in our modern society, you need to be prepared and willing to fight for what you believe in. You have to fight for your life, for your existence, at a moment's notice. Now, of course, in modern society, that fighting will mainly be done intellectually, right? With our brains. You need to be prepared to fight your corner so that people do not take advantage, so that people don't treat you unfairly, so that you don't get overlooked in a promotion or by your colleagues, right? And you might even suddenly have to fight for your actual life, as I've found out lying on that operating table. For the Celtic warrior, fighting was essentially their profession, their job. But it was much more than just a job to them. It was their life's passion. The Romans, when they fought the Celts, commented on the wild abandon with which the Celts threw themselves into battle. Not for them the highly organized battle strategy of the Romans. They even fought naked at times, so that they would not be encumbered by heavy armor. See, the Celts did not do things in half measures. And now let me tell you a secret. An unknown fact which represents the key to Celtic philosophy. This is actually what most of us neglect in our lives, and which then ultimately leads to unhappiness and lack of fulfillment. Even when we have actually achieved so much materially and maybe even otherwise. See, for the Celts, there was no such thing as a life-work balance. They did not make a difference between their life as a warrior and the rest of their lives. They were present in their life 100%. They did not wait for weekends so that their lives would begin. They had no holidays, no days off. Instead, their lives followed a much more natural rhythm. There's a wonderful ancient story from Ireland where the Celtic warriors argue over who gets to carve a prize pig. They start off, just like on the battlefield, by taunting each other, challenging each other, measuring each other up. And then they fight, just like on the battlefield. No holding back, no boundaries. For us nowadays, that sounds crazy, right? Who would be willing to kill or die for the sake of a pig? But to the Celts, see, there was no difference. On the battlefield or off it, the same rules applied. They did not hang up their weapons at night or at the weekend. They were warriors, 24/7. Now, you might think that they were like the serious, boring workaholics that you know, right? Think again. These guys really knew how to let their hair down, let me tell you. But they did not need a work-life balance, since they didn't make actually a difference between work and life. They lived fully, completely and passionately every minute of their lives. Now, as for me, this ancient Irish story of the pig reminds me to take having fun at least as seriously as working. But see, the most important lesson I learned from the Celtic warriors is that the idea of a work-life balance is just rubbish. Because the whole idea is flawed. You simply cannot break up your life into segments and then expect to live passionately and completely and keep your zest for life in the bargain. It would be like breaking up yourself into segments. Which is why I believe so many of us feel so unhappy and torn all the time. And I learned that that's not necessary, because it's even more true than to be happy and fulfilled, you need to be authentically you 100% of the time, which means that you cannot draw a hard line between life and work. Working is always part of living, no more, no less. Now I know that you're wondering now, how am I supposed to find this kind of a job? I need to earn money to make ends meet. Now, I'm not saying that you should throw in your job. I'm sharing with you an insight from Celtic philosophy. This can give you a new understanding of the quality that you could bring to your life in order to resolve the tension between working and not working that you feel at present. Now, I can understand that you might feel that you need a different job, and maybe you do. After all, that's what I did. I left the academic world and ended up combining what I feel passionate about, that's the Celts, and teaching in a completely new and meaningful manner. Now, standing here before you, I don't think I am working or I am living. I simply am. I'm me. Now, is this something you could see yourself doing as well? Now, I know that as you're sitting there listening to this, your brain is already working out what you know and what you love about your job, and that you're putting this into a new context, and that's great. And I'm also saying that you can learn how to change your perception of working and not working, of living and of not living. So now you know that achieving this work-life balance, that's a myth. And you should also realize that you can make the changes you need in your life to feel much more authentic all the time. See, this is one of those things that I learned from the Celts, and it doesn't really matter whether you choose to apply this ancient Celtic secret now or later, of how to enjoy life even more. Now, you might even consider letting me help you do that, because see, I have made it my life's mission to help people just like you, people with an interest in the ancient Celts, to find a new focus for your life by introducing you to the ancient methods and life philosophy of the ancient Celts, so that you can achieve your goals and live a full, successful and meaningful life.